Hey everyone, I'm Mike from theparkprodigy.com, and on today's video, we're going to break down all the pros and the cons of staying at an official Universal Orlando hotel versus an off-site friendly neighbor hotel within the Universal Orlando area. So if you are in the process of planning a Universal Orlando trip and you're not sure exactly where you're going to stay just yet, you're still in the process of picking out a hotel, just be sure to stick around until the end of this video. As always, I'm very excited, so let's go get started. Thank you all again so much for checking out this video. Like I said, we are about to break down the pros and the cons of staying at an official Universal Orlando hotel versus one of those friendly neighbor, quote unquote, off-site hotels. So when planning an Orlando vacation in general, there are just so many hotel options. There really are. It could be very overwhelming just because, Orlando is such a tourist friendly city, specifically with Universal Orlando and with Walt Disney World, and of course a lot of the other things going on in the area. There are just so many people coming in to Orlando, so there's a lot of options. But with that also comes the fact that there are a lot of great hotels at pretty much every different style and budget. So there is something to be said for that, and you definitely will be able to find the hotel that you're very happy with. But specifically for this video, we're going to jump in and we're going to try to break down the pros and the cons of if you should stay official Universal Orlando or if you should possibly go and look at one of those off-site hotels like we said. So we're going to start with the pros, and we're going to start with the official Universal Orlando hotels. What are the benefits of staying at one of the 8 official Universal Orlando hotels, or 8 hotels at this point in time, because we are getting 2 more hotels in 2025. So of course there are the basic benefits of staying, and I would say the way that Universal Orlando markets it as, they're going to have the free on-site transportation, essentially free, guaranteed early park admission with any ticket type. And it's important that I state that with any ticket type, because there are other ways to possibly take advantage of early park admission, by getting creative with some of the other ticket types out there. I'm not going to talk about that in this video, but if you do want more information on how you could take advantage of early park admission, by staying at an official Universal Orlando hotel or looking at some of those other options, just be sure to go check out our website, The Park Prodigy, and give me a call, and I'll be more than happy to walk you through those options. And moving on to the next one, this is a very popular one that I didn't think would be as beneficial as it's a lot of the questions I get, and that is the free merchandise delivery back to your hotel. You could essentially ship all the merchandise you're buying within the parks back to your Universal Orlando hotel. We do have the on-site charging privileges. Essentially, you can just charge everything back to your room card. And then over at those Universal Orlando Premier Resorts, you do have the free Universal Express passes, which can be a great way to save money. And again, to essentially get that Universal Express pass, even if you're only staying one night, you do get the Express pass on your check-in and your check-out date. So it's important for me to note that. And then also over at those Premier Resorts, you do have first access to essentially tables at a lot of the restaurants throughout Universal Orlando. So those are like the basics, like this, that's the way Universal markets it. But of course, if you've been watching our channel, you already know I love diving into, the real like tips and tricks and like what I really feel like is beneficial just from a, I guess a consumer standpoint, even though I am a Universal quote unquote travel agent. But because I sell this so much, I speak with so many different families at this point, and I really get a sense for what's important for you, and like what are your problems, and then we could pretty much go and solve them. So like these are like the things I pick up from planning vacations. But first and foremost, I think proximity is a huge pro when it comes to the official Universal Orlando hotels. So as you can imagine, this is a benefit for a couple different reasons, but just being able to hop in and out of the parks conveniently, I think of course, in life you pay for location, right? Well, when it comes to Universal Orlando Hotel, you really do get to essentially, in a lot of cases, just walk right to the parks if you do choose. Now, the other important reason why we want to keep this in mind is if you're closer to the parks, then maybe you don't have to worry about going and renting a car. Now, of course, just like that sounds, that's important for a couple different reasons. First and foremost, it allows you to, kind of ball out on a budget, right? If you don't want to spend the money on a car, you don't have to go and rent that car. But then also, again, from a convenience standpoint, there's, you have to go to the car to go check in to get the car. You have to go then make sure you fill it up with gas on the way back to the hotel. There are just so many moving parts that come with that. Like if you're looking for just, hey, the easiest, most convenient, everyone has the best time possible, including the parents, if you are the parents watching this video, then you might not want to go and rent the car. And so when it comes to really, like I said, being able to walk to the parks or just ease of convenience to the parks, I'm going to pretty much break down, how far each hotel within walking distance is from the Universal Orlando theme park. So in at number one, and this is really to the main two theme parks, so Islands of Adventure and Universal Studios Florida. In at number one, we do have Universal Studios Hard Rock Hotel. That's 0.4 miles away. We have Loews Royal Pacific Resort. That is 0.4 miles away. Loews Portofino Bay Resort. That is 0.7 miles away. Then official Universal Orlando, we have Loews Sapphire Falls Resort at 0.8 miles away. We have Aventura Resort at 0.9 miles away. And then we have Universal's Cabana Bay Beach Resort at 0.9 miles away. All of I would say the 6 hotels that I just mentioned, my honest opinion is even the ones that say 0.8 miles away, now even knowing that it's only 0.8 miles away, it makes complete sense because I've always said on my channel, I'm from New York. I love to walk to the parks. Whenever I'm staying at any of those hotels, I always walk. I almost never take the transportation. And you can see I typically say, yeah, it takes me about 15 to 20 minutes. And that's about right because if it's about a mile, if you're walking a mile, that's about what it would take you. And I think the other important thing to keep in mind is for these hotels, even the ones that I'm stating, 0.8 miles, 0.9 miles, there are some other hotels that I'm about to mention that are within the same vicinity of Universal Orlando. However, the hotels I just mentioned are official Universal, and that means that they have official Universal walking paths. And I just think there's something to be said for that, especially if you're walking back to your hotel at night. You maybe just feel a little bit safer. I always feel safer, especially when I'm walking in the morning. Sometimes when I'm going in the morning for early park admission, sometimes Universal could start early park admission at 7 o'clock, which means if I'm following my tips and tricks, I'm showing up an hour early, which means I'm walking over to the parks at 5:45 in the morning. It could still be dark out. I personally feel safer when I'm, on an official Universal Orlando property and walking paths. That's just me. But I do think that's important to keep in mind too. Okay, over to the off-site, non-official hotels which are within walking distance. So first we have DoubleTree by Hilton at the entrance to Universal Orlando, and that is 0.8 miles. We have Holiday Inn across from Universal Orlando, 0.8 miles. We have the Hyatt House across from Universal Orlando Resort, 0.9 miles. And so those would really be the closest. And I'm stating like at the entrance to Universal Orlando because you'll see there's so many DoubleTrees in Orlando. Like that is the actual name of the hotel. So if you're like, oh, I want to check out the pricing for the DoubleTree by Hilton, you have to actually make sure that you're looking at DoubleTree by Hilton at the entrance to Universal Orlando. It's ridiculous, but that's just the way it is. And then some of the hotels that are close by, Universal has 2 other value resorts, Endless Summer Resort and Endless Summer Surfside. Those hotels are about 1.3 miles from the parks. I would not walk that, even though it's not that much further, but I just wouldn't walk it given you'll see once you get to Orlando, the layout of those hotels, I would always take advantage of the free transportation if you're staying at Endless Summer, Dockside, or Surfside. You take advantage of the free transportation, and that brings me to my next pro, right? All of the Universal Orlando hotels come with free transportation. So no matter which hotel you stay at, even if you stay at the ones closest to the parks, you do have free transportation. You have shuttle buses, you have ferry boats within the hotels that are included with the ferry boats over to the theme park. So you really never have to worry about walking if you don't want to. You never have to worry about getting there if you don't want to. You always can rely on the free Universal Orlando transportation if you're staying at an official Universal Orlando hotel. And this brings me also to my next pro, which is the thing I love about Universal Orlando hotels is if they're providing free transportation, it's going to be in line with early park admission. And here at the Park Prodigy, we really do love early park admission. And when I give a lot of my tips and tricks, a lot of what I do, I just said, if I'm going to early park admission, I'll show up an hour before. We typically will recommend that to families to get the most out of that extra hour, specifically if you're trying to go onto Hagrid's Magical Creatures Motorbike Adventure. Now, where this is important is you'll see a lot of the off-site hotels do have free transportation, but the con in that is if Universal Orlando is running early park admission at 8 o'clock, their transportation will start in order to get guests over to City Walk when it opens up for 7 o'clock, which is an hour before. At the non-official Universal Orlando hotels, if early park admission starts at 8 o'clock, their free shuttle service might not run until 8 o'clock or 8:30 in a lot of situations, right? So you can't really take advantage of early park admission if you do have that So I just think that's one of the cons. And then, of course, kind of sticking with transportation for a little bit. Like I said, if you don't want to rent a car and you just want ease of just getting to Universal Orlando and then enjoying the parks and not have to worry about parking or renting the car, anything like that, Universal does really all have all-in transportation options if you're staying at an official hotel. And they have the Superstar Shuttle, which can take you to and from the airport as well. So the Superstar Shuttle is about $38 per person, but that will take you, they'll pick you up at Orlando International Airport, drop you off at your Universal Orlando hotel, then vice versa, pick you up at your Universal Orlando hotel and bring you back to the airport when it is time to fly home. And of course, yes, so it is $38 per person, but it's important to note that, especially if you're renting a car and you're driving to the parks, you're easily going to spend $27 to park at Universal Orlando. It could be more depending on the type of parking that you decide to go with that day, but also even at the Universal Orlando hotels, parking, depending on the type of hotel you're going to be at, is going to be anywhere between $15 up to $38 per day, right? So you could say, there is savings depending on, which way you look at it by going with the official Universal Orlando hotel and just banking on that transportation options. Okay, over to the next pro that I really love is whenever you book a official Universal Orlando hotel, that's going to be your all-in price. So a lot of times I'll get a lot of calls when guests are on our website, and they're shopping around and they'll be like, hey, I'm looking at Loews Royal Pacific Resort at Universal Orlando. Is this my all-in price? Are there going to be taxes or fees or anything at the hotel? And no, that's absolutely not the case when official Universal Orlando hotels, and you'll see it is different when you go non-official with some of the other hotel options. And then, of course, speaking of Loews Royal Pacific or any of the premier resorts, any of the high-end Universal Orlando resorts, there are 3 at this point in time: Hard Rock Hotel, Loews Royal Pacific, Loews Portofino Bay Resort. Those will include the free Universal Express passes. And I speak with so many people, and I can't, I don't think I'm overhyping just how much of a great value this can be, especially if you are shopping for a Universal Express pass. I think you at least need to go and shop and get a price for an official Universal Orlando Premier Resort to see just how much money you could potentially save. And I will say this, I know this is like a pros and cons to really help you figure out like which one do you stay at for your Universal Orlando trip, but I will say that I do see a lot of families too do a split stay, and I know split stay in the industry can mean staying at Universal for a couple days and going over to Disney World for a couple days. But in this sense, I actually mean staying at an off-site, friendly neighbor hotel to save a couple bucks, maybe the first or second night, but then moving over to a Universal Premier Resort, maybe the third or fourth night to take advantage of those Universal Express passes. So, families get creative, especially when looking at the prices of tickets and like all that good stuff. So that's another way that I will say that, you don't have to kind of just stay in one hotel. You can always move as long as you are okay with having to check into a second hotel. And last but not least on the pros list, I would just say the quality of the resorts at Universal Orlando, especially when you start to look at the price points now that Universal does have Endless Summer, which is, quote unquote, official Universal Orlando hotel starting at under $100 per night. I just think for the quality of, what you get by staying at an official Universal Orlando hotel, compared to maybe some of the other hotels in the area, it really is unmatched. And you'll see, we're going to compare the pricing, towards the end of this video, and you'll be able to kind of get a glimpse of what that looks like. Now, over to the official Universal Orlando Hotels cons. Now, I will say the cons of this is typically the on-site hotels will typically be more expensive, specifically once you get into the preferred and the premier categories, when comparing it to, let's say, some of the other off-site hotels. Now, like I said, though, in those premier categories, you do have to keep in mind that you get the Universal Express Pass for free. However, if the Universal Express Pass isn't important for your family and you just want like a really, really nice hotel, then you might be spending a little bit more on a per night basis. But again, we got to make that decision when we start looking at pricing. Another one of the cons over at Universal Orlando is there might be limited like hotel room categories. And what I mean by this is over in Disney has a Disney Vacation Club with the Disney Vacation Club Villas. And that allows families to essentially go and book really, really large rooms, like 3-bedroom suites that have full-blown kitchens within that suite, right? You don't have that over at Universal Orlando. From a room standpoint, it's really just basic, like standard water view, preferred rooms. Of course, they have concierge level rooms, and they do have plenty of suite options for those larger families, but nothing that would allow you to, let's say, cook breakfast in the morning. And again, I speak with so many families, and that's something that does come up pretty consistently, that a lot of families just, they like to be able to cook their own meals, whether it be for dietary purposes or they just prefer, right? What works at home will work on their vacation, So that's just one of the downsides of the official Universal Orlando hotels. It's more so just your regular, whatever you would think of a base at, at a hotel. That's kind of the room styles that they would have. Now, of course, they do have, I guess this should also be a pro, is they do have some really, really cool themed suites, such as the Minion family suites, and they do have the Jurassic Park suites. If you're looking for those over the top, right, kind of themed rooms. But from amenities like kitchens, they do not have that at this point in time. And another con would be, I've spoken a lot about reasons, why you shouldn't rent a car, but a lot of families might prefer to have that rental car, to have the flexibility, or maybe you're in Universal or you're just in Orlando in general for a very long time, and you want to be able to go and experience a lot of the other things that are going on outside of Universal. So yeah, there could be a benefit in having your own rental car. And then on the flip side, one of the cons is that Universal really does make sure to keep their benefits, within their official Universal Orlando hotels. Like Disney, for example, does give the, Disney early entry to some of their quote unquote friendly neighbor hotels, which are really on Disney World property. But that's not the case with Universal. If you want the benefits that I just spoke about, you really do specifically need to stay at an official Universal Orlando hotel. Okay, moving over to the quote unquote friendly neighbor hotels, or just really any hotel that's off-site, non-official Universal Orlando. So what are the pros? So at this point in time, one of the main things is something that's so very, very important for a lot of families is that typically you will get the better deal. And taking it one step further, specifically speaking of getting better deals, a lot of times you can use your credit card points to book these hotels, and they could be part of special reward programs, that sort of thing. So a lot of times what families will do is they'll take advantage, if you're a Hilton Club member, or Marriott member is a very, very big one, Bon Voyage, right? You can take advantage, you can use credit card points to book these offsite hotels. And of course, in that case, then it's not even close, because you're going to just essentially save everything on the hotel. You're not paying for the hotel. So that's where, of course, I do see the benefit, and a lot of times it does make sense for a lot of families to possibly go and book one of the offsite Universal Orlando hotels. Now, the other thing that comes with a lot of these hotels is you could possibly get free breakfast out of the deal, or even discounted breakfast. So my uncle, when he goes down, for example, with his family, he always talks about the breakfast over at the Rosen Inn in Orlando. Even though he doesn't stay there, he'll go and drive to this hotel for the breakfast. And I had to actually go and look it up. Essentially, it's $12.95. And it's essentially a buffet breakfast from 6:30 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. But for $12.95, for a complete buffet breakfast, like I said, we're from New York, we love to eat. I could see the value in that, right? It's very, very tough, especially in these days in New York. A bacon, egg, and cheese and a coffee is probably like $15 alone right there. So $12.95 for a buffet breakfast, I can't blame him for that. The other cool thing is a lot of the hotels, offsite hotels, they do have free parking. So again, a lot of times, because maybe the free transportation from these hotels might be quote unquote, limited, but they will give you free parking. So if you do want to rent a car, you definitely can do that, and you can save on the parking. Now, again, another pro would be a lot of them do have the quote unquote free shuttle transportation services to and from the Universal Orlando parks, and of course the Disney parks. I'm going to even just throw the con in, though. Like I said earlier in the video, my honest opinion is it's going to be a little, you're pretty much on their time. I'm trying to think of the best way to say that. With Universal Orlando, when the free transportation and the shuttle buses start, they're pretty much running every 15 minutes throughout the day at that point. So if you're tired in the middle of the day and you want to go back to your official Universal Orlando hotel, you can do that. When it comes to the non-official hotels, a lot of times their shuttle services will be a drop-off in the morning and a pickup at night. So you don't have that convenience, and I do think that is a big difference for a lot of families, especially if you don't have a rental car. But back to the pros. Another one of the pros is, again, I've spoken about Disney a couple times in this video. It's kind of hard not to when you're speaking about an Orlando trip. But a lot of times families might want a hotel that's really in between both of the parks. We actually have a video we just released, which is how far is Walt Disney World from Universal Orlando, or how far is Universal from Walt Disney World? And you'll see in that video we discussed that they're about 25 to 30 minutes apart. So if you want something that's more convenient and kind of right in the middle, then of course an off-site hotel might be a great option for you. Okay, moving over to the cons of the off-site hotels. And of course, we already spoke about it, but they do not have consistent transportation, specifically if you're trying to take advantage of early park admission, which again, go check out our website, theparkprodigy.com. Another thing is they do have resort fees. So a majority of them do have resort fees. Even if we sell a lot of these offsite hotels, and I've spoken with the hotels like, hey, I'd rather just give my client like an all-in price. Like, can we give them and charge them the resort fees up front? And no, unfortunately, they're just like, no, this is like industry standard. So they do have resort fees once you get over to the hotel. Typically, they're most, in a lot of situations from the hotels that we've been booking, they're not a lot, maybe $12 to $15 per night. Could possibly get up there. You'll see they're more expensive when you do start to stay over in Disney, where the most popular ones that I stay at it constantly is the Dolphin and the Swan. At this point in time, at the recording of this video, it's $45 per night for the resort fee. So you do have to be mindful of that. But of course, if you're unsure, if you see a hotel that you really like, great price, you can always, again, go check out our website, give us a call. We'll be more than happy to help you look into any resort fees that might be at that hotel. And then again, another one of the cons is that they might not have the over-the-top theming compared to some of the Universal Orlando hotels. Specifically talking about those suites again, Minion Family Suites, Jurassic Park Suites, stuff like that. But in a nutshell, everyone, that is pretty much, those are the pros and the cons of staying official Universal Orlando versus non-official Universal Orlando. I do have some pricing very quickly to kind of give you an idea of the differences at the different price points. And so I looked up September 10th to the 13th, and over at Endless Summer Resort, we do have a nightly rate of $128 over at Universal's Aventura Resort, which is a prime value. So Endless Summer is a value, Aventura is a prime value, and we do have a nightly rate of $187 per night. And then moving over to Loews Royal Pacific Resort, which again is one of those premier resorts that's going to give you the express passes for free. We do have a nightly rate of $438 per night. Now moving over to the non-official hotels for your next Universal Orlando trip, we have the Rosen Inn Point, and I do have a nightly rate of $98.86 per night. And then this also does include free breakfast in the morning. So you do have to keep that in mind. So what I would say is, Endless Summer's kind of compared to Rosen Inn. So again, Endless Summer's at $128 per night. Rosen Inn is at $98 per night. But, you could see, like, in a situation like that, we're so close where it's like, oh, but we have to rent the car for the Rosen Inn, right? So once you rent that car, you might be above the $128 per night. And I think that's why a video like this is so important. So the next one we have is Holiday Inn across from Universal. We have a starting rate or the nightly rate of $154 per night. And this nightly rate does include breakfast. Again, free breakfast. It has 2 standard beds in the room that I looked at. I would compare this to Aventura Resort, where Aventura Resort is $187 per night. Again, you could see not that much of a variance. So $187 per night over to the Holiday Inn across from Universal at $154 per night. So yes, well, $30 can add up quickly, but also could add up quickly on the flip side if you have to rent a car. Over to the next one, and I did want to give you an idea of kind of an option that does include something like a kitchen, like we discussed. So we have the Home2 Suites, Hilton Orlando near Universal Studios, and this also does include breakfast in this price, and we have pricing coming in at $193 per night. And then over kind of at one of the nicer off-site hotels, we do have the Hyatt Regency Grand Cypress, and I do have a nightly rate of $382 per night. Again, when you compare this to the Loews Royal Pacific, which gives you the free Universal Express passes, that pricing was $438. So you could see definitely a difference there, about $50. But just overall, this really gives you an idea of how much you could potentially save by going with an official off-site hotel. But on the flip side, you really can see the benefits that come by staying at an official Universal Orlando hotel. And I do hope that you found this video helpful and it gives you enough to make the best decision possible for you and your family as you plan your next Universal Orlando vacation. And if you are in the process of planning that vacation and you haven't already gotten the memo, we definitely would love to help you out. And we do have a bunch of free vacation planning tools on our website over at theparkprodigy.com. And as a thank you for sticking around all the way to the end of this video, I do have a special promo code that you can go and use, and you can go and use it to book an official Universal Orlando hotel. We even have a bunch of the off-site friendly neighbor hotels, and you can go and use it on a discounted vacation package, just tickets, whatever you want to do with it. It is your coupon. That coupon is going to be YouTube 25. But I think that's all the time we have for today. Thank you all again so much for checking out this video. And until next time, I will talk to you soon.